But first, talking about ABC bias. You know my guest last night, Andrew Neil, the British broadcaster. Well, he walked on to the ABC Q&A show on Monday and he looked around and thought, hang on, why only one side? He couldn't believe it.
The days when the media tries to provide a broad spectrum of opinion and have a debate about it so that everyone, I mean, where is the strong voice tonight in favour of voting against the voice? I haven't seen it. You know, whereas a good debate would have had at least one voice saying that. It's quite clear there's a lot of voices here in favour of the voice too, but let's have a debate.
Yeah, a typical ABC panel, no one actually against the voice. But a debate, you know, giving both sides is about the last thing the Yes campaign and the Albanese government want. And even when the ABC seems to be trying to be fair, it fails. For instance, the ABC has now put together a glitzy video called Everything You Need to Know About the Voice. It's an attempt to seem impartial, informative, yet it is so loaded. Like, it asks this very leading question without giving the very obvious counter-answer.
It's a question that for many poses a few more questions, like what is an Indigenous voice? And why is it up to us to decide whether or not it exists?
Now, by us, I assume the presenter means non-Aboriginal voters, which happen to be 97% of the Australian population. And the reason we're all asked to decide whether there should be a voice for just one of the races in our constitution is because this change does affect us all. But the bit that really got me was when this ABC report, Everything You Need to Know About the Voice, this kind of Aboriginal-only advisory parliament, explained why it had to be in the constitution so that no parliament could ever get rid of it. Now watch this particular part of this video. You are not being told something very important, a reason to be very worried.
If the referendum succeeds, the voice will be enshrined in the Constitution, basically meaning it can't be disbanded or gotten rid of down the track, something that has happened to First Nations bodies in the past.
It won't be officially abolished until July, but the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Commission is already being stripped of its $70 million worth of assets.
What has happened in most cases, a party will appeal to the voters that it will get rid of this XYZ body because it's clear that it's not working. And that's happened, I think we reckoned 7 times in our history.
So from the ABC's presentation, you're invited to believe that terrible populist governments, probably racist, scrapped past Aboriginal bodies like the Voice for no good reason. Bodies that, if you believe Marshall Langton there, should never have been sacked. But what you aren't told is what really happened and why such a body shouldn't be in the Constitution, why governments should be able to sack them. What you were not told is that the only body we've had that comes close to the Voice and was sacked was the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander Commission, or ATSIC, last led by Jeff Clark, who identifies as Aboriginal. And by the way, Marshall Langton there did work for it. So why was ATSIC scrapped 19 years ago? Well, let me give you some clues. 1, ATSIC was riddled with rorting. For instance, Clark took his wife to Ireland at ATSIC's expense. Clark got his board to agree to pay his private legal expenses after a pub brawl. Clark also refused to pay compensation to a woman who claimed in a civil case to have been raped by him. And Clark still faces hundreds of charges of fraud. Now at ATSIC, a deputy commissioner was convicted of misusing his position, and when he and Clark and a bunch of other men were re-elected to the ATSIC board, Clark said to female voters, "You've given us a mandate. You've returned the traditional role to Aboriginal men." Now that comment might explain why ATSIC was heavily criticised, including by me, for doing next to nothing about shocking rates of domestic violence in some Aboriginal communities. It seemed preoccupied instead with esoteric things like pushing for a treaty, like Labor wants now. In fact, Clark got a former comrade from the former Aboriginal Provisional Government, there's a clue there for you, that he used to help run, to work on constitutional changes instead of something more practical. And that and other reasons is why ATSIC was eventually sacked. And does anyone seriously believe that what Aborigines really need today is a new ATSIC, a new one, but this time in the Constitution, so that it can never be sacked no matter how bad it gets? And out in the bush, where the real disadvantage is, a lot of Aborigines there are saying, well, what exactly is this voice of 24 unelected members that the Aboriginal aristocracy is now pushing for? 24 unelected members on a body that won't be able to be sacked. What's that going to do for us? Because I've seen this stuff before. And it's not just me saying this, or Jacinta Price or Warren Mundine. Even the ABC has just found that out. And credit, rare credit to the reporter, included these people in her report.
We only see it on television, but really don't know what does it mean.
Nah. All these people in the community taking sit down, they get the shock what's going on, you know? Yeah. And that's why we need more feedback, you know, from the government to come out, talk to us, and we know what's going on.
Come and look at us, the Aboriginal way to stand like face to face, to sit and talk. That's what we are looking for.
The deeper you look into this unelected and unsackable voice, the more it looks like the plaything of the Aboriginal aristocracy and of white activists and people of the left who feel somehow guilty and want to seem good just by voting for something they do not understand and will not work. Remember ATSIC and be warned.